This was supposed to be an apology, but what unfolded was something far more uncomfortable. Two people sitting in a quiet park, and yet every word felt loaded, every pause felt intentional, and every sentence revealed what was really happening. This was not about healing or closure. This was about control, silence, and power. And by the end of this conversation, one thing became painfully clear. Nothing had actually changed. And that is why you need to watch this all the way through. This moment does not begin like an apology. It begins like a trap. Quiet, measured, and carefully staged. Kody Brown sits across from Meri in a public park, presenting himself as calm, reflective, and reasonable. But the tension is immediate because Meri is not relaxed, not receptive, and not fooled. Years of emotional imbalance have taught her that whenever Kody shows up claiming peace, there is always another motive beneath the surface. And from the very first exchange, she makes it clear that she does not understand why he is there, what he wants, or what this apology is supposed to accomplish. And that uncertainty is exactly what makes this scene so unsettling. Because Kody wants acceptance without explanation. He wants forgiveness without accountability. And he wants silence disguised as healing. Meri senses it immediately, and that is why she stays guarded, because their last interactions did not happen face-to-face. They happened through lawyers and distance and paperwork, not reconciliation. And now suddenly he wants to sit in a park and talk, and she is not willing to play along just to make him comfortable. As the conversation unfolds, Kody attempts to control the narrative, using soft language and vague remorse, repeatedly saying, "I apologize," as if repetition alone can erase years of neglect and dismissal. But Meri does not let the words wash over her. She asks questions, she pushes for clarity. She wants to know what this apology is actually for and why now. And each time she does, Kody grows more uneasy, because this is not the exchange he planned. He did not come prepared to listen, he came prepared to speak. And that distinction becomes painfully obvious when he begins steering the conversation away from anything that might require real accountability. He avoids specifics, he dismisses deeper issues as being in the past, and he shuts down topics that make him uncomfortable, while insisting that he is only there to apologize. And the irony is heavy, because an apology that does not allow response is not reconciliation, it is control. And Meri recognizes that dynamic because she lived inside it for decades. What makes this moment so powerful is that she does not explode, she does not accuse, she does not beg. Instead, she calmly holds her ground and tells him she will not be shut down anymore. And that single statement changes everything, because it exposes the real conflict. Kody has never struggled with Meri speaking, he has struggled with Meri speaking freely. He frames her as difficult, aggressive, and combative, but what he really means is that she does not accept his version of events without question, and that threatens him, because anyone who refuses to validate his self-image becomes an obstacle rather than a partner. And this is where the emotional stakes rise, because it becomes clear that Kody views disagreement as hostility and boundaries as defiance. And as Meri continues to push back, the cracks in his performance begin to show. He brings up her friends criticizing him on the show, suggesting that their opinions mean she has not moved on. And in doing so, he reveals the true motive behind this meeting. He does not want peace. He wants silence. He wants the criticism to stop. He wants the narrative controlled. And he wants everyone connected to Meri to stop talking about him in a way he cannot manage. And Meri shuts that down immediately, explaining that when someone is mistreated, the people who love them will speak up. And that does not mean she is bitter. It means she is supported. And that truth lands hard because it highlights what Kody has lost: influence, loyalty, and control over the people who once protected his image. And as the conversation continues, his apologies become scattered and strange, apologizing for being triggered, for having opinions, for moments that completely miss the point. and it becomes obvious that he is following a script, one designed to make him look reflective without requiring any real change. And Meri sees it, and the audience sees it, and the tension builds not through shouting or drama, but through the quiet realization that this apology is hollow and that nothing meaningful will come from it, because Kody is not there to repair the damage. He is there to manage the fallout. And as Meri continues to hold her boundaries, refusing to soften or reassure him, the imbalance becomes clear. This is not a man seeking forgiveness. This is a man uncomfortable with losing control. And the longer the conversation goes on, the more obvious it becomes that this meeting was never about Meri healing. It was about Kody trying to reclaim authority over a story that no longer belongs to him. As the conversation moves forward, the emotional weight becomes heavier. Not because anything is being resolved, but because everything is being exposed in slow motion. Kody continues to talk while carefully avoiding the substance of what Meri is saying, and this avoidance becomes the central tension of the scene, because every time she attempts to address something real, he redirects, minimizes, or shuts it down, saying it is in the past, saying it is water under the bridge, saying he does not want to dig luggage out of the river. And what becomes clear is that he wants the appearance of accountability without the discomfort of responsibility. Meri listens patiently, but her expression never changes because she understands that accountability is not about sounding reflective, it is about acknowledging harm and committing to change. And that is something Kody refuses to do. He speaks about shame, but only in vague terms, never naming the specific actions that caused it. He references regret, but never connects it to consequences. And when he begins apologizing for moments that feel random, like not finding her funny or being triggered by her presence, it becomes obvious that he is grasping for anything that sounds remorseful while still avoiding the core issues that actually matter. And this is where the suspense deepens, because the audience realizes that this apology tour is failing in real time. Meri is not impressed, she is not softened, and she is not convinced. And instead of pushing back with anger, she does something far more unsettling. She stays calm and calls out the pattern. She tells him that the repeated apologies feel strange, rehearsed, and insincere, and that nothing in his behavior suggests real change. And that honesty clearly rattles him, because it removes his ability to hide behind words. He then awkwardly insists that he is not trying to get back together, a statement that feels unnecessary and revealing, as if he still believes his presence alone should hold power over her. And Meri shuts it down immediately, stating clearly that reconciliation is not on the table. And that moment lands with finality, because it confirms that she has emotionally moved on, even if he has not. And as the conversation drifts further, it becomes clear that the one topic Kody absolutely refuses to address is the children. The moment Meri mentions them, his demeanor changes, and he labels the subject as forbidden, refusing to engage. And that refusal speaks louder than any apology, because a parent committed to repair does not silence conversations about their kids. And Meri points out that words mean nothing without action, noting that nothing has improved. His involvement, nothing has changed in how people are treated, and nothing suggests growth. And that realization is the quiet climax of the scene, because it confirms what viewers have been sensing all along. This meeting was never meant to fix anything, it was meant to control perception. And when the conversation finally winds down, there is no resolution, no comfort, and no sense of closure. Only clarity. Meri walks away guarded but grounded, understanding that while he may be willing to say the right words, he is not willing to do the work. And Kody is left looking frustrated, not because he was attacked, but because his strategy did not work. He did not receive reassurance, he did not regain control, and he did not succeed in silencing her. And that is why this scene lingers, because it shows the moment when power shifts quietly, not through argument, but through boundaries. And the suspense does not come from raised voices or dramatic exits. It comes from the understanding that this was the last time Meri would engage on these terms, because she no longer needs validation from someone who refuses accountability. And that realization marks the true ending of their story, not with forgiveness or reconciliation, but with awareness and distance, and the certainty that words without change will never be enough. By this point in the conversation, the energy has completely shifted, because what started as a controlled attempt at reconciliation has unraveled into something far more revealing. Kody is no longer calm, he is no longer centered, and he is no longer confident in the direction of the exchange, because Meri has not given him what he came for. She has not validated him, she has not reassured him, and she has not agreed to play along with the idea that words alone are enough. And that realization visibly frustrates him. He continues circling back to his apologies, repeating them in different forms, as if adjusting the wording might suddenly unlock forgiveness. But Meri remains unmoved because she understands something he still refuses to accept, that an apology without accountability is meaningless. And as she listens, she begins to articulate the core issue that has defined their relationship for years, that he wants to be heard without listening, that he wants resolution without responsibility, and that he wants peace without doing the work required to earn it. And this truth hangs heavy between them because it cannot be dismissed or redirected. And for the first time in the conversation, Kody seems unsure of how to respond. He attempts to frame himself as someone who lost his way, someone who became disconnected from the man he used to be. But even this self-reflection feels incomplete because it still centers his experience rather than the impact of his actions. And Meri notices this, pointing out that while he speaks about regret, nothing in his present behavior suggests growth. She observes that relationships are still fractured, trust is still broken, and the same patterns of avoidance and control continue. And that is when it becomes clear that this conversation is no longer about the past, it is about the present and the future, and whether or not change is actually possible. And Kody does not have an answer, because admitting change would require commitment, and commitment would require consistency, and that is something he has never demonstrated. And as the conversation drifts toward its end, there is a quiet finality settling in. Meri is no longer searching for understanding, she is no longer hoping for validation, and she is no longer trying to fix anything. She simply acknowledges reality, that despite the words, despite the setting, and despite the performance, nothing is different. And this realization is not emotional, it is calm. It is grounded, and it is freeing because it means she no longer has to engage in conversations that go nowhere. And Kody senses this withdrawal the moment she emotionally steps back, because he begins to talk more, filling the silence, attempting to regain control of the moment. But it is too late. The shift has already happened. The power no longer rests with him, and that loss is what truly unsettles him. Not anger, not criticism. In the end, the words sounded right, but the actions never followed. And that is the difference between an apology and accountability. This conversation did not bring closure, it brought clarity. And sometimes clarity is more powerful than forgiveness, because when someone shows you who they are and nothing changes, the strongest move you can make is walking away and protecting your peace.